What is going on, Bucs fans and CFP fans? Evan Wanish here, co-host of the Cannon Fire podcast, bringing you a new series that we are beginning on the Cannon Fire podcast channel, trying to give you guys some other video content besides just the regular podcast, which if you haven't checked out our game review show from the Buccaneers 49ers game, please go check that out. It is on YouTube right now and anywhere else you can listen to a podcast, so be sure to check that out. But today we are going to be talking about studs and duds from the Buccaneers Week 11 loss to the San Francisco 49ers by a score of 27-14. There's a couple studs in here, even though there is a loss. There is a couple studs, but there's also some duds as well. Without further ado, though, let's get right into the studs. And I'm going to start off with Yaya Diaby, who obviously had 2 sacks on the day. The rookie outside linebacker / pass rusher, I guess you could say, has really come into his own, especially these past 4 or 5 weeks, I would say, and has really started to take control and take some snaps away from guys like Anthony Nelson or even Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who we may talk about later. We'll see. But Yaya Diaby had 2 sacks, bringing his total on the season to 4. That's more than Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has 3, and Yaya Diaby now, even though one of the sacks he was kind of uncovered, still counts. So Yaya Diaby, his progression, he continues to be a bright spot for this Buccaneers defense. Him and Kalijah Kancey have been 2 young players that have really played well for the Buccaneers. So he is a stud in this one. Another stud, I thought Trey Palmer. The stat line won't show it, right? 4 catches for 22 yards. As long as 17, though, I thought Trey Palmer looked good yet again. Another young player that's contributing, and a nice find for Jason Light now in the 6th round there. A really, really nice find of a player. He's looking like a massive hit, and I do think that the future is pretty bright for Trey Palmer there. We're going to stick with offense one more before heading over to the defense side of the football. And on offense is kind of actually a special teams one. And a stud is Devin Tompkins. Now, he only really made 1 play, but that's the only play he needed to make. And that was a 51-yard punt return that set the Buccaneers up in good field position. They ended up not scoring, unfortunately, but the longest return of his career. Looked like he had a chance to maybe take that one to the house. Just ran out of room towards the sideline there. But Devin Tompkins continues to be a pretty productive player for the Buccaneers. And they've been looking for a guy who, as a returner, can give them some juice here and there. And they may have found that guy in Devin Tompkins. So hopefully he can keep this momentum up. Like I said, a 51-yard punt return really helps his case here. And hopefully that gives him more confidence, because if he's able to turn into like this special teams weapon for the Buccaneers, that's a big thing. And that's something they haven't really had in a long time. So shout out to Devin Tompkins. On a defensive side of the football, one more. We're going to go with Antoine Winfield Jr. And this is kind of a bad thing, but good thing for him. He had 16 total tackles. It's not great because he plays in the secondary. That means that those guys are getting to the second level, right? Like he's having to make those tackles. Not a great sign when your safety is your leading tackler with 16. But I do think Antoine Winfield, again, has just played really well. Did he mess up coverage there on the one long touchdown? Maybe. It's not going to be perfect, but I did think his day was pretty good. And his season as a whole has been great. So I'm not really going to fault Antoine Winfield too much. So with that being said, that was the studs. Let's get into the duds here. And I don't want to do this, but you got to do it, right? Like you just have to do it. And honestly, most of the duds are on defense for the most part. Like I don't know if I have a single dud on offense. I thought the offense, while they didn't play perfect, right? They certainly didn't play perfect. Baker Mayfield, I don't think belongs in either category. He's sort of in the middle, had a few dropped interceptions, but also made some nice plays. So I don't want to really fault him for that too much. But let's get right into it. The first dud is going to be Devin White. Now, Devin White, look, it's a tough task to cover Christian McCaffrey, and with the 49ers, with their offensive scheme, it's tough. But on the McCaffrey touchdown, Devin White sort of got lost, had no idea where McCaffrey was. McCaffrey was wide open, just walked into the end zone. Devin White only finished with 3 total tackles. It's just not good enough. Not good enough from a guy who requested a trade in the offseason. And he requested that trade because he wanted to be paid like a top linebacker. Well, not really playing like a top linebacker right now. So hopefully Devin White, for the Bucs' sake and for his sake, can rebound and finish out the year strong, because right now I don't know if he's even going to be back in Tampa Bay. So he really needs to get his game in check, and he needs to play better. He just simply does, because if he doesn't, he's not going to get the contract he wants. So it's sort of like a bittersweet type thing for Bucs fans, I guess. I know there's some Bucs fans that didn't really want to give Devin White that contract, but at the same time, you'd be losing a pretty massive piece on your defense. So we'll see what happens in the offseason. But Devin White for week 11 was a dud for me. Another dud for me was the corners. I'm going to talk about both corners. I'm going to group them together. Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis. Jamel Dean obviously got burned on that Brandon Ayuk touchdown, ended up getting injured on that play, did not return to the game. It's a big loss for the Bucs. I know some people say, well, not really a big loss, but when you have to play Josh Hayes because Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis are out, it's never a good thing. So when you have to play Josh Hayes, who I believe was a 7th-round pick, when he has to be one of your starting corners because your other corners are injured, it's tough. So Jamel Dean just did not do a good enough job on Sunday, and really this whole season has not really been a good season for Dean. So he's a dud. And then Carlton Davis also. There was a few times where Carlton Davis was beat. I know obviously in the Texans game, he was beat a ton. He just returned from injury. Then he left the game with injury. So we'll have to monitor that as well. But don't want to kick guys while they're down. Like, I know they're hurt, but they are 2 duds for me. And then another dud is going to be Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Logan Hall, William Golston, but more specifically Hall and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, just because the Buccaneers are expecting so much more out of them. Like, this is, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is a former first round pick, 32nd overall. Now, I know that's basically a 2nd-round pick. I get it. But at the same time, you're a first-round pick. Like, this is year 3. Like, you got to be productive. Logan Hall, 2nd-round pick last year, the first pick of the 2nd round, though, and just hasn't developed. I mean, I don't see anything with Logan Hall there. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, there'll be times where he'll flash a tad, right? Logan Hall, not at all. I don't mean to rhyme there, but looking at the Buccaneers stat sheet that I have right in front of me right here, I see Logan Hall's name. Logan Hall had 2 tackles, okay? Joe Tryon-Shoyinka doesn't show up at all on here. So that is a cause for concern there for the Buccaneers, that their former first-round pick from a few years ago doesn't even show up on the stat sheet. And he's a starter. So they need so much more from both those guys. And they're lucky that Kalijah Kancey and Yaya Diaby and Vita Vea are as good as they are, because if they weren't, this pass rush would be in dire straits right now. So hopefully those guys can turn it around and really become key pieces for the future in Tampa. I mean, if you could have your future pass rush look like Yaya Diaby, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, with Vita Vea, Kalijah Kancey, and Logan Hall on the inside, because, that's not bad if Logan Hall and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka can develop. But right now, you're just not seeing that. So hopefully they can, but they are duds for me. That'll be all for Studs and Duds this week. We'll be back next week with another edition of Studs and Duds. Stay tuned for more video content like this throughout the week. We're going to be doing this throughout the week, throughout the rest of the regular season. So hope you guys enjoy. If you guys have any video suggestions for us to do, please feel free to shout them out. Let me know. I'm always open to that. Like I said, please go view, watch, listen, however you like to the review, to the 49ers game. We just reviewed it. We'll be coming out with a brand new episode of CFP tomorrow, which is Tuesday. But for now, goodbye. Thank you all for watching, and go Bucs.